Welcome back to the Context Coaching Podcast. We are joined today by Josh Duke, who is the Executive Director of Athletics and Operations at Grace Prep in the DFW Metroplex. Those of you that listened to the couple episodes ago, I'm a big fan of that word that I was handed, so I'm going to use it as often as possible. But Josh is the Director of Athletics. They got fancy titles at Grace Prep. I'm gonna maybe steal that and talk to my president. Way back after I talked to Leo Lopez years ago, and he was the Vice President for Athletics, I came back and told my president that I needed a new title, but he wasn't very receptive. So maybe this one will work better. But anyway, Josh, thanks for being here today.
Justin, thanks for having me.
All right, Josh, take us through the story. You just said that you're an alum of the school you're at, which is great. That's what I do as well. But take us through the journey from high school on to college, on to first coaching jobs, into current AD role, and all the steps along the way.
Yes, sir. So I started going to Grace Prep, started in first grades. I was there. Our school's a university model school. So our kids in pre-K through 6 go Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they're home with their parents Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And our 7th through 12th graders go to school 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they have satellite work that they do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So when my parents found the school, thought it was going to be a good thing for me going into college to be used to that model. And so I was blessed enough to be able to go there. I have 3 younger sisters. They all graduated from the school as well. So I played basketball at Grace Prep. I was there all 4 years of high school, went on to Abilene Christian, did some work with the basketball program there, was a student manager for Joe Golding and Brett Tanner at ACU. And right after ACU, my wife and I got married right after we graduated and moved back to the Metroplex and got my first job at Fort Worth Christian School in North Richland Hills, Texas. Scott Thanum hired me there. I was the 9th grade boys coach, and I got to sit the bench with varsity, get to go to their practices, and just start getting a taste of what being a high school coach was like. Obviously, being on the playing side, being on the coaching side is way different. And so I was at Fort Worth Christian, was the 9th grade coach for 2 years. Then got the promotion to the JV coach. I coached under Jeff Bell. He's a Texas high school legend, over 1,000 wins, 5 state championships in the UIL. Still coaching right now at Grayford High School, so he's still in it. Got to coach under him for 1 year, then ended up getting the varsity head coaching job there, and was that school's head coach for 3 years. So I was there for 3 years, made the playoffs. I had some pretty good teams. And that's when Grace Prep, the AD and head boys basketball coach job came open. Applied, went through that process, got hired in 2020. What a time to get hired, right? And I've been at Grace Prep since. I've been the director of athletics and head boys basketball coach there for 6 years. I had some really good teams, really good talent, and just been blessed to be able to lead that program.
All right, so we're going to dive into this, what you call it, a university prep model, which I've never heard of. I love my Texas conversations, but this was 1999. So I'm 27 years into being an educator, and I've never heard of a school that is essentially, I don't want to call it part-time because they're doing, you called it satellite work. This is the terminology before remote and asynchronous came into play. Tell me more. That's fascinating. How at the pre-K through 6 level specifically does it work? It almost requires that you're not in a dual working family. But anyway, give me some more on that, because I'm fascinated. I know this has nothing to do with coaching, but like this is wild.
Yeah, no, it's the environment that I'm in though. So the school started in 1992. A group of families got together. They were homeschool families, and they were looking for something a little bit extra that included extracurriculars, right? Athletics mainly, right? But athletics, fine arts, all of those things. So started in 92. And for the majority of the school's lifetime, it's really only been a junior high and a high school. So 7th through 12th. Maybe about, I don't know exactly, but probably 12 to 15 years ago, they started implementing the pre-K through 6 and went backwards, started at 6 and then started adding down. We actually just recently, last year, opened the pre-K. So still continuing to evolve a little bit. So like you mentioned, pre-K through 6, there are some families who are blessed enough, obviously, to not have 2 working parents in the home. And so that kind of is an easy way to be able to do this model. I've seen it done, though, with grandparents, aunts and uncles stepping in and helping along there. Obviously, having a full-time job in 1998 looks completely different than it does now in terms of, are you going into an office? Are you working from home? How flexible is it? So I think sometimes that can be a barrier of entry. People are like, I just can't do that. And then when they learn more about it, they may be like, oh, okay, that doesn't seem too bad after all. Obviously, 7th to 12th, you're looking at a model where when they start 7th and 8th grade, the parents are going to be a little bit more involved, right? In their homework and making sure they're doing things. Hopefully the model works, and 9 through 12 is a little bit more, hey, I'm just checking in, are you doing well? They're getting grade reports, obviously seeing that, but their education, the students are taking a hold of that because it does allow for flexibility. When do I do my homework versus when do I train for sports versus when do I train for the other things that I'm involved in? There's a little bit of time flexibility, and what we tell parents is the biggest plus for us when we're trying to sell it is you get more time with your kids. And the traditional school model doesn't allow for that. There's nothing wrong with the traditional school model. But if you want to spend more time with your kids, then you should do this, right? But there is a benefit to having your kids in your home more and then having the time flexibility to make your family look the way you want it to look.
No, it's just super interesting. So the high school then they're Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday. What's going on campus?
So Tuesday, Thursday on campus is actually when our pre-K through 6 are at school. So we share a school building. Exactly. So those classrooms are getting turned over most days. There's some that don't, but a lot do. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, they're at home doing homework that they have. Obviously, every class isn't going to have 2 hours worth of homework every day, but therein lies the flexibility of, like, when I was at school, right? I like to watch Monday Night Football. So I wasn't doing Wednesday's homework on Monday night. I was coming home from school, showering, eating, and then being like, hey, my dad and I are going to watch football. So then Tuesdays became the day that I did my homework. There are plenty of kids who Monday Night Football didn't interest at all, right? So they may have said, hey, I'm going to go get my homework done on Monday, and then Tuesday I can do whatever I want within the limits that my parents let me do.
Super interesting. Okay, the other thing I'm curious about is there, to my knowledge, there's a really thriving kind of homeschool population in Texas where they have an entire co-curricular setup, leagues, all of that stuff that these schools play in. But a buddy of
Right.
mine's kids were homeschooled, and yet they had a full slate of like basketball going on that wasn't just club per se. It was like these homeschool teams. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, there are homeschool groups really all across Texas. There's actually a national homeschool tournament in Oklahoma, right? That tons of schools play, and I'm sure your buddy's team played in that too. But they're separate. So Texas is, I think, you probably know more than I do, one of the few states that has separate private and public school leagues, right? So those homeschools don't participate in the private school league. There's some things that they have to go through actually to be eligible to play other private and public schools. So some of them comply, some of them don't. It's really not a big deal. You just know which ones do and which ones don't. But they have their own thing to the side. But we may see some in a tournament. We may see some in a fall league or a spring league or a summer league, something like that. But yeah, it's organized, but it feels like the Wild West maybe to somebody looking in on the outside.
Yeah, if you don't have any knowledge of it, it definitely seems like the Wild West. But it's good over the years I've been able to capture some sort of understanding of how Texas sports work. Okay, as the athletic director, how many sports do you sponsor at Grace Prep?
Yeah, so in the fall, we have volleyball, football, cross country. We do a team tennis season as well in the winter. It's just boys and girls basketball. And then in the spring, we have baseball, track and field, golf, and tennis.
And
So we keep plenty busy. What I like to say is really the only main sport we don't offer is soccer. They're like field hockey and those kinds of things. Some schools have them, but it's not very popular down here.
and how many students, 9 through 12?
220 around there.
Okay, so I would imagine that you have a relatively thriving multi-sport culture.
Yeah, we do. I think one of the things that I like to talk about with multi-sport athletes is number one, obviously we encourage it. We can't survive as a school without that. And then number two is I think there are some kids that can go, hey, I'm a football player, I'm a basketball player, and I'm a baseball player, and I am one of the school's best at all three of those sports. They're going to be really good athletes. Like we coached a kid a few years ago. He's playing football at Illinois State right now, but he went from football to basketball. And did it take him a little time to get going? For sure. But there was no talent drop off. He was ready to go. Maybe his shot was off, his touch was off, whatever. We worked that in, right? There are a lot of kids where expectations have to be set early in the year where, hey, we want you to do those things, but your role on each team can look different based on the talent level of the team, who's to the right and the left of you, that program's aspirations, all of those things. So I think it's juggling the promoting it while not selling them a dream that you can do anything you want exactly the way you want it.
So I love that frame. And I think We're in a similar boat. We're a little bit bigger, but we are, especially in this area, I would say one of the last kind of strongholds of the multi-sport athlete where we promote it, we celebrate it, we give out an Iron Pirate Award for seniors that have played 12 seasons of athletics. And to your point, if you're a freak, like you're gonna go be a dude on every team. But the thing that I promote about it is you're actually learning how to be part of something bigger than yourself in the role in which you inhabit, right? So you might be the quarterback on the football team, and then my son's playing deep hole in lacrosse, and he's a casual starter on the varsity basketball team as a sophomore this year, but it's like you're figuring out where you uplift and you might be the cheerleader on a team. And those are all valuable roles. So how would you say you are able to capture those kids when the entirety of the world is messaging against you right now?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really benefits us, and this is pretty situational and really could change at any time, right? But it's attractive to be in our program. And so you are going to have some kids, some football kids, right, that can come in and play immediately and help us and do the things that we're trying to do. And then there's going to be some kids that are more of that 10th, 11th, 12th man that come in and they're like, man, I want to be a part of the team however I can help, whether that's being physical, whether that's doing whatever that we need them to do. But I really do think, I really like what you said there, like with the different roles, right? I encourage all my guys that play summer basketball, go find a team where you play a different role than what you play for us because it's going to help you grow as a player. If you're the dominant on-ball guy with us, go find a team where you're the third or fourth option. You have to play off the ball. You have to back cut. You have to be the screen setter and do the little things to stay on the floor that maybe you don't hear. And then vice versa, really building a kid's confidence of, man, I really want to be on the ball. I want to be a decision maker. I want to be a better shooter. Go find a team where you are one of those guys and you can really work that out. And I think that mindset is not just for a single sport, but that can be also for our multi-sport kids as well.
Yeah, I always use this kid as my example, but I had a guy that had never played basketball in his career, football guy primarily, played lacrosse, and all of his football buddies were like, "Hey, can he come play hoop?" And I'm like, "Anybody can come play hoop. I don't care." And he didn't play at all, but he was the basically the captain of the team and the best leader we had. And now he rodeos in college at Cal Poly, and it's like his ability to step into a team and put his personality and influence into cohesiveness, even though he might have played 10 minutes the whole year, was transformational and invaluable. And had we not had the space or the willingness to do that, like that entire group of kids misses out on his leadership. Have you seen that play out across all your sports? Are there examples you can share to maybe encourage some of our brethren that are, if you're not with us year round, you don't get to play type approach?
Yeah, again, I really think the one of the major things you have to look at is what is my team makeup, what is our outlook, and what are the kids who are making your sport a priority? What are their goals and aspirations with this thing? At the school that I was at previously, we pretty heavily depended on football, especially for numbers, right? We had kids that played basketball. We had our core 6, 7 guys, right? And then you had guys coming in that were going to help with athleticism, that were going to help with those things. And you just had to make it work because you knew that was the environment. It wasn't right. It wasn't wrong. It just was what it was. And so when you're in the trenches there, it almost feels like, man, I wish I had anything else. Or, man, I wish, this and this. When you get a program where, out of the 25 guys that we keep in the high school, 85% of them play basketball only or don't play football. So I get them at the beginning. They may run. We've got a bunch of kids that run track. We've got some kids that play baseball, right? But it's that off season that really seems like I don't want to miss it. What am I going to miss? Or I don't want to get hurt. Like those are all things we hear. But the encouragement there is like when those guys come in, they are stepping into something that kind of has its own ecosystem and has already been going. So there is a little bit of, hey, we need you to fit in. But if that's the wall we put up of we need you to fit in if you don't, and we'll just move on, we may get those guys 1 or 2 years, but they're not going to keep coming because people are just going to say, if you don't play this way, or you may not get as many minutes. And it's, man, we've got to make it attractive to where they come in. And are they going to have to work at it? For sure. Are they going to have to fit into what we're doing? For sure. But when a kid does that and it aligns with the talent that you have around them, there's no reason that those kids can't play and play at the highest level. The year that I won a state championship in 2022, the kid I was telling you about that ended up going to Illinois State was a sophomore. He probably played every down of football on both sides of the ball, right? Like, he's just a dude. And he comes in and he played a role for us that was, hey, I'm going to rebound. I'm going to go. He was probably 6'2", 6'3". I'm going to just be your most physical guy. I can finish at the rim. I'm going to hit a couple shots, but I'm not just going to be this like 25-point a game score. And that was okay. Fast forward to his junior year, the role totally changes, right? So he comes in and he gets everything he wants. But it really had to do more with who was to the left and right of him, and not necessarily a pigeonhole because you play a sport that isn't basketball.
No doubt. How do you survive at a school of your size in football with 85% of your basketball players not playing football?
Yeah, so like right now, right at 30% of our high school boys play football. We recently, it was so like out of like 100, 110, right? So normally we have about 35 to 40 kids that play football, right?
And you can get two levels out of that or one?
We normally do one, and then we play a short JV season.
Okay.
So we may play like 3 or 4 games with the JV. A lot of those kids, all of our kids are shooting up on
Yeah,
Friday nights.
11
That
eight
makes
man.
sense. 11 man.
Okay.
Yeah, 11 man. Looking at the schools around us, 30% is about right. There's not many schools that are, of course, you're going to have some of those football powerhouses. That's what they do. But really, the percentage of the kids that they end up keeping isn't all that different. It's just that they have more to draw from. We've been blessed. Our football coach does a phenomenal job of getting kids to play and keeping the spirit, school spirit up for football and all of those things. They had a great year last year. And so it may sound like, oh, you guys don't have enough. There's been years where I think the year before I got there, they had 19 playing in 11 man. That's just tough to survive. And for the last 6 years, we've always had 30 plus kids, and it's basically stayed about there. But when you look at it, there's really not much room to grow just based on the percentage that we see around us.
Okay, so then how do you navigate what could be perceived as a conflict of interest as the basketball coach and you're the athletic director? And let's say you're in a year where you had 19 and you're like, yeah, I'm going to run all these fall workouts for basketball and these dudes aren't going to be out of football. And talk a little bit about that if you don't mind. Because for me, as a school that is so dependent on seasonal athletes, I don't shut it down, but we're also not purposefully running a bunch of off-season workouts that could conflict with the season of sport that is currently going on.
Yeah. So again, Texas, it probably gets this rap of it's just all sports. So like when I was at Fort Worth Christian before this, a couple years ago, before I ended up getting there, they were doing the pretty old school, right? There's no sports specific training in the off season. What is that going to do? That's going to drive kids to play the in season sport, because what am I going to do? Just sit around here and do nothing. And there was a school in Lubbock that's called Trinity Christian School, and they didn't play football, so they didn't have to fight this. And when you go to Lubbock Trinity, they have a nice gym. It's great. And then they have across the street in this strip shopping mall, they renovated whatever it was, right? And there's 25 basketball goals just on poles, just hanging around, right? I walked in there as a player one time to do a shoot around. I was like, no wonder they can shoot. So they've got this setup, right? And the head coaches at the time at Fort Worth Christian went to the AD and they were like, hey, listen, I'm not trying to step on your toes, whatever, but like, these are what the best teams are doing. So like to give us a fighting chance at doing it, like we've got to have some time in the gym in the fall. They ended up overhauling it, right? So we go, man. And that is the hardest part. We probably play 10 to 15 games in the fall. They're running fall shootouts all the time. There's a thing called GASO, Great American Shootout. We're playing other high schools, and that's completely normal. We play fall leagues on Tuesday nights in September, every Tuesday night. We're in Duncanville playing games. So it is hard. It's hard to not feel left behind if I choose to play football. And I think that's where the football coaches and the basketball coaches come together to try to formulate a plan. I had a kid this year that during the off-season athletic period for basketball, he was in the gym with us, and then he would go to football practice, and we would purposefully not let him play 5-on-5. We were trying to make sure, hey, your skills are up. You've got a ball in your hand. You're handling it. You're shooting it. Also, it's hard to step into a team that's been going and not feel like, where do I fit in? So we've done that in the past. There's been some kids that play basketball that say, hey, I don't want to do that. I want to be in football when it's football season, and then I'll come to basketball. That's phenomenal. That's great. There's no problem problem with that. I think it's that adjustment of expectation that we've talked about before there.
It's also an adjustment of approach, right? So if you're
Yeah,
going to use the approach you're currently using, where I'm playing 10 to 15 games in the fall, I'm playing a ton in the spring, these guys are playing in the summer, we're playing in the summer. It's a very different approach to coaching basketball than if you've got three basketball guys and nine athletes. Like your
right.
approach to how you coach is different.
Completely.
How have you tackled that over the course of both being at Fort Worth Christian and now at Grace Prep based
So
on the talent pool you have?
totally. Fort Worth Christian, it was a lot of continuity action, right? Trying to simplify it and really allowing like the three dudes to have the ball in their hand and determine where it goes and running many sets for them, right? It changes how you play. It was a slower approach. Everybody wanted to play faster. And I'm like, the second that we try to play fast is we start involving, like you have to involve all five guys on the floor, but not all five have to touch it, right? You just start getting these unexpected outcomes, right? Where you're like, man, if we could have just handled the ball and taken care of it, maybe we get a good shot, right? Moving over to Grace, it just looks a little bit different, right? Like we have guys in the gym 24/7. In fact, like I'm not playing spring league this year because I'm like, if we played spring league this year, I don't want them to get hurt for the July live period. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. We have guys that have aspirations of playing college basketball, and we'll have plenty that do. They're getting so much outside of the school. Right now, fall's a little bit different, right? We're talking about coming into the season. We've got to learn how to play together again, all those kinds of things. But it completely changes how you coach them, and it completely changes what you run, right? Like right now, a lot of what we do, we run a little bit of continuity, and it depends on the opponent, right? Like continuity, if you're playing somebody where it's like, hey, we can get what we want and let's just be methodical with it. We can play within the confines of what we want to do. We'll do that. But then there are so many teams in our district and in our non-district schedules loaded that like we have to run stuff to get the ball into guys' hands. So it almost reverts back a little bit, but like what you can run goes from, hey, we can run like this out of 100, like 50, 60 grade stuff. And now I'm able to run that 80, 90, 100 grade stuff where kids understand the terminology, they understand what we're trying to do. And it's a lot more about running some more complicated action that other teams have to guard and prepare for, and then letting our guys take over and just be the studs they are.
So how do you, I won't say justify, but we'll use that for the time being, the depth and the elaborate actions when you have guys that sound like they're as good as they are. Like for me, it's if you have players, let them play. Simple stuff, drop a domino and let those guys get work. And so it's like, how do you balance, I guess would be the right word, based on what you just said with the talent level of your team?
I think the old cliche is, hey, if you don't want to run something, let's get in transition and go. And then you're not going to hear me. I'm not going to slow you down if we run. I think some of that still holds true, right? We're getting a rebound, we're going, right? We're looking to kick the ball to the floor, pass it, not dribble. We're looking to go, right? And you can look at any team in America, what they shoot around the rim is going to be way better than what they shoot anywhere else. And so we're trying to get our dudes downhill, going to the basket, being unselfish, making the extra pass, do all of those things. But I think there comes a time where you have to be real with your guys and go, it's impossible and impractical to run in transition or just be in continuity for 100% of the time. But if every time that we try to run stuff, we haven't really practiced it, we're not really bought in, we may as well just run then, because we're going to do that way better because it's what we do for the majority of the time. And so really the actions that we try to get into are more actions where, like, I love empty side ball screens, running those and letting our guys go downhill. We've got guys that can flat shoot the ball. And so spacing is a really big deal for us, making sure that we're in those right spots, and then running. Like, the complicated action doesn't necessarily mean that the ball's going to touch five sides, right? Like, it's not just this slow, methodical. You see some of the stuff Hurley runs, it's insane. And those guys make it look so simple, and rightfully so, the level that they're at, right? But really what we're trying to do is, I want to play downhill 100% of the time and then adjust based on what we're getting and what the opponent is throwing at us. There's going to be opponents where they're going to match our physicality, they're going to match the length, they're going to match the speed and quickness, and say, hey, we're going to have to pull. We're just not going to be able to grab rebounds all the time and go. And then I think too, in any team, right? your defense is going to completely dictate the flow at which you play offensively. If you're grabbing the ball out of the net and having to inbound it more times than not, you're going to play slow. I don't care what team you are. You're going to play slower than what you want to play. It may be faster than somebody else, but you're going to play slower than you want to play. So having guys that buy in on the defensive end that are willing to do those things and then get rewarded on the other end, that's where the success is.
So take me back to Fort Worth Christian. I'm the freshman coach. I'm the JV coach. I take over as the head coach. You're there for 3 years. You were a manager at a Division I program. You got behind the scenes understanding of what you need to do, but then all of a sudden you move over 18 inches. What did you realize right away that you needed to figure out? And if that's too long ago, you can apply the same question to your appointment as the athletic director and head coach at Grace Prep, because you have two versions of, holy shit, I wasn't ready for this.
That's right. Man, I really think what it looks like to be an assistant is completely different than what it looks like to be a head coach. I think all the stuff in the background, maybe as an assistant, you get shielded from that a little bit. Like you may be a stipend guy that only shows up for practices, or you may be a full-time guy like I was teaching in the high school and then showing up to practice. But our head coach has been thinking about practice and doing that all day. It's this long, elaborate thing. Not knowing what I didn't know, you just have to step in and go, right? And you take from what you've seen, taking a little bit from what I saw at ACU, taking a little bit of the two guys that I worked for prior. And I think that first year, man, I was so obsessed with it looking the same, right? I'm a little bit of a creature of habit. So like the same to me was like, hey, we had a little bit of success last year. We made the playoffs. We won a playoff game. Coming in now, I'm a new head coach, but I've been at the school for 3 years at that point, and we had a bunch of returners. So I'm like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's do all these things. But my coaching style wasn't his coaching style. So I'm trying to run his stuff and hold kids accountable the way he did, but it wasn't natural to me. And so there was a little bit of a rub there, right? And so you learn, man, like it's just so much better and it's not like I wasn't being myself, right? It just like some of the ways that we talked to kids, the ways that we held them accountable, the way we ran practice, all of those things tried to look very similar, because I was like, man, it was success. Like it was successful. So why wouldn't we just keep doing it? And there's a reason he's won 1,000 games, right? It works. But it works for Jeff. And obviously there's still stuff that I use from him all the time. We still run sets that he ran. They're phenomenal, right? Some of the practice drills as well. But the other thing I think too is learning how to leverage your assistants. I was an assistant that was a self-starter. It was just natural. Like I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. I was pretty vocal. I'd ask them, like, what do you want? What do you want for me to do? Tell me what you want me to do. I was coached that way. I was probably the last generation that got yelled at consistently, right? So I'm like, you can yell at me. It's not going to bother me at all. I need to know my parameters, and then I'll operate within those and do the best that I can. But that's how I learn, but it's not necessarily how I lead, right? So I was banking on assistants that were self-start. If they're unhappy, they would tell me. If they want to get in this drill, they would tell me. If they think something's wrong, they would tell me. And so those first 2 years at Fort Worth Christian wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the best that it could be knowing what I know now. The third year that I was at Fort Worth Christian, I hired a guy that had just retired from the public school system. He came recommended to me. I had an opening at Fort Worth Christian for my JV coach, and he's probably 30 years older than I am, and came on staff with me. And he's still on staff with me now at Grace Prep. I brought him with me. That change to where he was able to tell, I've been a head coach, I've been an athletic coordinator, I've done all these things. He really became like a coaching father figure to me that was able to tell me, hey, here's where I think you're wrong, but I've got your back 100%. And that was a game changer for me.
No doubt. So how, now that you've had that, and let's stick with your coach hat for right now, how would you share wisdom with others, regardless of place in their journey that they're at, but the value of having older, more seasoned mentors around to help guide you along the way, right? Because in theory, it's the pyramid and you're at the top, and these people report up and you're delegating. And it's not like this person becomes above, but no, this person can now push back and be like, yo, man, hold on. Like, why? What are we doing? Let me give you this. Talk a little bit about that and how you would advise others to search for some accountability partners in that way.
Yeah, I think this is a life principle. I don't think this is a coaching principle, right? I think having mentors in your life that you can be brutally honest with and tell the truth. I'm talking personal life and your employment, right? That you can just be here. This is just who I am. This is what I struggle with. This is what I think I'm good at. And I really need you to come alongside me and be brutally honest with me. Again, it's a life principle. You need that. You need that in a friend group. You need that in a mentor group. You need that at work. You need that with your family. You need it in every aspect. And so what I would say to it feels, oh, we're talking to younger coaches when you ask that question, but really it's for everybody, right? Is finding someone that's in a life stage one or two ahead of you and then looking to pour into somebody that's a life stage one or two behind you and trying to find yourself in the middle to where you can pour into somebody while getting poured into. I think that's the best kind of recipe combination that I've found. And those guys above you being able to speak truth and life into you as well as hold you accountable. And a lot of times those things coincide, right? And then having the guys below you, underneath you, that you're able to say, hey, man, I made that mistake. I did this. I'm not telling you to not do it, but here's what happened to me. And I want you to know that. I think it's the best of both worlds. And when you can find that on a coaching staff, I think it's special.
Absolutely. How have you navigated the transition into being an athletic director, which wasn't on the resume before? And what are some of the things that jumped out at you that you're never really ready and you have some preparation and you're going to navigate things, but like some of the things you remember dealing with early that were you to have to encounter those again, it would be a whole lot easier.
Yeah, the answer that you don't like is I took over during COVID, so I had no idea what the heck was going on at any point, and obviously those that's long gone. So we won't spend much time talking about that. But you take over, you get in a new role. It's a little bit elevated. You have way more responsibility. Also, here's 76 guidelines that you need to memorize right now to try to figure that out. Thankfully, we had amazing head coaches that really policed their programs the right way. I was able to just be like a guiding hand in that. I think the obvious change is that you're never off. You're on fall, winter, and spring. But I really view my role, obviously, coaches report to me, right? I have two assistant ADs that work underneath me as well that are coaches in other sports. So having the two people that are right there with me in interviews, right there with me brainstorming, right there with me when something comes up and it's, hey, it's not really like an easy fix. We probably need to sit down and discuss this. Makes it feel like it's not all on me, but I also get other perspectives, which is great. But I think I like to view my role is that like I am the ultimate cheerleader of the athletic department and I get to go support teams that I get to know what's behind the scenes and a lot of people don't. Parents get a snippet, fans get a snippet, coaches know they're the ones obviously reporting to me, but like just being at the school every day, all those things, like I'm well aware of what's going on, right? So celebrating those little successes, even though they may not be successes to the outside world, is such a big deal. And then when you get like right now, our baseball team is killing it. We have a phenomenal head coach. We're a young team. They took their lumps as freshmen. Last year as sophomores, made the playoffs. It was a big deal. This year as juniors. Right now they're 8-0 in district, going in, playing a game tonight, and they're just doing phenomenal. So like I get to see it from the 1,000-foot view of where they came from and where they're going, but they're good. So like when we go to the ballpark now, we're expecting some things, right? And so with expectations comes now I'm going to have a coach that is nervous as all get out. Coach in third because he's man. Last year it mattered, but it was like oh it's a surprise, right? And then as a freshman it was like man we're just trying to survive out here. We want to make it fun. What we know as coaches, it seems like, oh man, I would just always want to have the best team. And there's probably no problems and no issues and nothing. And I'm like, I know every set of issues that come with having such a good team. So let me walk alongside you to make sure that we're navigating it appropriately. Just the added day-to-day stuff is obviously there. Working with really good people negates a lot of that stuff. Having a really good athletic admin that takes care of a lot of stuff behind the scenes, having really good coaches that pour into kids that are more interested in the 5 to 10 year outlook of their life
Yep.
than the right here, right now.
Yep.
When you get guys and girls that are on the same page doing, that's where deep work can really be done.
For sure. And I'm curious because you mentioned this. I get to look behind the curtains. You're watching these other programs. What are some of the things that you've been able to bring back to your own coaching experience in basketball or whatever else you're coaching in life? But that we tend to get tunnel vision, surround ourselves with people that are doing the same thing in sports. But as the AD, you get to see everything. So, what are some of the things you've been able to take away from your colleagues that you've been able to implement on your own?
I think there's a lot of things. I think interpersonal communication, I think the way that they run their program, I think things that they do outside of the obvious practice game schedule, all of those things you can look at, and we have guys and girls that are doing awesome work. One that comes to mind was actually when I was at Fort Worth Christian. The head football coach was the athletic director, and I got he was there. He ended up leaving a little bit before I did, but he was there a long time. And I got to watch the standard that he held his kids to, but then I also got to watch how he involved the parents and community into his program. One of the main things that he did, being at a Christian school, a private school, one of the main things that he did that I took and I do even today is before certain district games, he would have, maybe it was one Friday night, would be that the dads came into the locker room and they got to pray over their sons before they went out. And he just used it as a, number one, we're always in PR mode, right? We're always trying to sell our program. We're always trying to show people why it's different and why they should be a part of it. And what better mouthpiece than the people that are currently in it? So he would have locker room prayer dads, and then he would have locker room prayer moms, right? So the moms would come in and do that. And it was really a time like, and you try not to like leverage it or use it for more than what it should be, which is really just a time for a son and mom, or a son and a father to reconnect, right? But depending on your team, right? Hey, my team is young and they're nervous and they really just need something to calm them down before this really big district game that maybe we're punching up and we need to be our best tonight. Maybe that's a great time to recenter and refocus and tell them, hey, we love you, we care for you, and we're here together to root you on and watch you. I think that's really good, a really good time to use that. And then it also gives me a time and other assistants time to just tell the moms and dads how much we appreciate them. I have 3 young children myself. My oldest is 8, and then I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. The oldest is a boy. So he's on our bench. He's our towel boy. He's our water boy. He's the lowest manager possible. We've got managers that are managing him as well. But I get to tell moms and dads all the time that my son gets to watch your sons do what they love to do. And it's such a special bonding time for me and him. But he gets to watch how I interact with them. He gets to watch how they interact with each other. And there's so many of our kids at the school that I'm like, I want my son to be around them more. So getting to tell parents that is something that's outside of a practice or game when they score a lot of points. Hey, really appreciate what your son did tonight. He's awesome. They want to hear about what they're doing outside of basketball because they get to watch that. And so that to me is one of the main things that I've taken and implemented from somebody else that I think is a culture driver, but it actually has real meaning in words and not just a buzzword, right?
Now, the piece you mentioned about your children, and we'll use your son, but the others will be along soon enough. Being around the older athletes and kids and what they take away from them. All 3 of my children grew up here on campus, being part of the team, traveling with us, sitting on the bench, and the relationships they have with those kids throughout time. And now my son's in high school as a sophomore, and he's going to be an upperclassman next year. And there's his head coach's son is around now. So it's this pay it forward thing that the standard has been established is so invaluable. And anybody listening that has kids, if you don't have them at practice and on the bench and in the bus and in the van, they're missing out. And you're missing out from an accountability standpoint about making sure your culture is tight around your kids. Talk a little bit about how that has influenced your growth, because going back now, my math, you're 9 years as a head coach. So before your children were born, how have you shifted as a parent in your approach to coaching now that you got these 3 little ones running around and looking at you?
For sure. I think one of the main things is viewing who you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis and knowing how their parents view them. I don't think before this I thought, oh, that kid doesn't matter. Nothing like that. But we're dealing with one of parents' greatest joys in their life is their kids. And all they want them to do is succeed. All they want them to do is have a good time, whatever that means to them. That gets tricky. What's a good time? And they want them to be a part of something where they feel like they contribute, right? And so whether it's on the floor or off the floor, whether it's in this sport or that sport, how are we building kids up to where they go, it matters if I show up. It matters if I'm at practice. It matters if I at the game. And then on top of that, right, for a lot of them, hey, it matters how you play, not your worth. Your worth never changes, right? But the kids to the left and right of you are depending on you to do the job that only you can do. And you're not going to be perfect at it. None of us are. But what is our attitude and effort towards the role that we've been given? Like, how do we steward that? I think when we send kids back home and the parents can see that there's a growth in them, That's where they understand what we're doing does translate to their lives, and it's bigger than the individual sport that you're coaching.
No, for sure. And as we talk, when I ask about growth and development, right, you're now using things or words, come alongside of them, steward. This isn't what you were doing at 24. So, how has that evolved? Where has that come from? What are the influences that have begun to center, right, your coaching around values-based stuff versus outcomes, which is where we all start?
For sure. One thing that we do that a lot of people do outside of this as well, but one thing that is just so centered and something that we probably my wife and I probably could have done it at 24, but it would have looked different because we have kids and we're a little bit more established now, right? Is we do once a month team dinners at our house. And it is mainly reserved for the varsity team, right? We'd love to live in maybe a little bit of a bigger house and then we could do the whole program, right? But it's reserved. And to me, this has maybe become a little bit unpopular. I really think that there should be things that the varsity team gets to do that the JV team doesn't, because
Absolutely.
where is my drive to want more, right? If everything's just
100%.
handed to me. So that's a little bit of an aside. But so we do team dinners at our house. Our kids are involved. We make them play games at the table. Our 8-year-old son is probably the most competitive 8-year-old ever, right? So he's in the backyard playing football with them. He has a new card game that he wants them to play. He's getting all of them. We're doing eating the jelly beans, and they don't know if it's a good flavor or a bad flavor. They're putting their phones up. They're engaging with each other. But that gets to be something where I don't have to live a life where home doesn't include basketball and the basketball team doesn't include my home, right? All these things are coming together. So like they see my wife and I stewarding a home. They see us parenting our kids. They see us holding them accountable. There are plenty of times where we've told kids like, hey, if you need a place to hang out, here is going to be, I guarantee here's going to be better than the alternative. It's going to be safer. You're going to make better choices. We'd love to have you come over. We've had kids that really early on at Grace, one of our guys, his granddad was in a terrible accident and his mom had to go, and it was just him and his mom at the house. And so the mom called me and said, can he come and stay with y'all? Because I know that, absolutely, we would love to have him. And it wasn't a weird thing where it was like, oh, you have to go stay there, whatever. It was like, no, it's fine. Like we do team dinners all the time. He's familiar with our house. He knows the ins and outs and what we do. And at those dinners, I knew that at the beginning, it was going to take some work for them to like voluntarily give up a night to come to coach's house. And now more times than not, my feet are put to the fire of, hey, when are we doing it this month? Because you haven't told us yet. And whether we're catering, we try to lighten the load on my wife a little bit. It's one time we'll cater, one time she'll cook, right? So we try to alternate a little bit to help her out with that. But that to me is such a driver of what we do on the floor, because kids can just come and be kids and they see each other outside of basketball and they're playing video games. They're watching the NBA or NCAA or whatever it is. They're playing football in the backyard. They're playing a card game. They're competing in things that are other than basketball, but it's really more about the relationship and the time that we build with them. So when my wife comes to games, all of our guys go over and say hi, like every game. Right. And like my son, like I said, is on the bench and he's interacting with them all the time. But then my two daughters get to come over and they have their favorites and they want a hug from this player after the game and they're giving high fives to this player. And I think what it does is a lot of our kids come from phenomenal family situations, right? And they all look different, but they're all just, they have loving parents and siblings and all of those things are great. But we know as educators that it takes other people to step alongside them to make sure that they become the best they can be. And my wife and I are not going to be that for every kid. We're just not going to be. But we are open and available for whatever kid we jive with, right? Or they just are like, man, I just enjoy hanging out with them or I enjoy coming over to team dinner. So now I feel comfortable asking a hard question. I feel comfortable letting them in to help steward and steer me in the right direction. That's all that we're trying to do. And what I would say is I think a lot of us at our core as coaches, that's what we're trying to do at practice and at games too, just within our season. And I think a lot of times it takes something outside of those things because those things can be transactional. And there's no transaction when you come to the Duke House for team dinner. You can show up an hour late, you can show up an hour early. There's no transaction. You're going to eat, you're going to be around good people, we're going to have fun. And when the kids go to bed is when you need to go home. But other than that, it's all good.
I love it. Love it. All right, coach, let me wrap up with this. And this question has become more important in my mind as the society we currently live in has become more polarized in regards to how are we challenging our own belief system, right? And how are we inviting dissenting voice into our reflection and into the way in which we show up in the world. And so, what have you most recently changed your mind on? Doesn't have to be coaching. We get put into these echo chambers, or the people we surround ourselves with usually are of similar opinion. And I don't know that we are actively seeking to change our minds anymore. So I'm always curious what people are doing to push back against their previously held beliefs. And I used to be pretty dug in over here in regards to topic X. And now I'm over here. And here's why. This was intentional. It wasn't whimsical. But I'd love to know where you are with that, what your thoughts are on that, and how you build that into your teaching and coaching.
Think everybody does this differently. I'm like I would say I'm a little bit of an academic. I like to read, I like to listen. So for me, it's probably less interpersonal conversation, although I do have that interspersed, but it's a little bit more like reading things that are going to challenge my belief system on whatever it is, right? Or listening to that. And I do, for me at least, I find it more effective, not necessarily that I change my mind on everything, but more effective where I can lay it out and go, okay, this is what I did believe. This is what maybe this book is suggesting that I change my mind on. Now, how am I going to build that back together? It is a little bit less interpersonal because people have a way, me included, of being so far one side that they really can't step outside of themselves. So if I'm asking you to help me change my opinion on something, you're probably not going to come down the middle. You're probably going to tell me exactly what you believe and why I should believe it. And that's going to be a little bit hard because I was like, oh, but I've been primed with the 5 things that tell me all that's wrong. So I'm never going to be able to step over. And really for me, it's listening. I listen to books on Spotify. That's kind of what I do. So books and podcasts. So really those 2 things. And then I think that's really more in my personal life, maybe my spiritual life, those kinds of things. I think on the basketball side of things or just the sport, right? But for me, it's basketball. I think it's talking to other coaches that do what you don't do and be like, help me understand why. Because there is a why. Because like a lot of us, there's stuff that you can learn from everybody, right? But a lot of people are going to go, okay, let's look at the state tournament. Who made the state tournament? Okay, what did y'all do? Because, man, I watched you guys play and you ran this defense and it really seemed to work for you. So why? I don't think I would run it, but I need you to tell me why. I think those conversations are a little bit more productive because we tend not to be as polarized in that as we are in our personal things. Like one thing for me in basketball, right? Like I've for forever held the belief that you cannot press good teams. It's a waste of time, right? So if there's a good team and they have good guards, and we've built a whole identity on pressing people and getting live ball turnovers, you're eventually going to run into a team where that doesn't work. So if my whole defensive scheme is based on this one outcome and I can't produce it, for us, I would think that would happen to us in the state tournament. So on the biggest stage, we're going to run into a team that has a top 10 kid in the class. We've ran into him 2 years in a row. Top 10, 2027. You're not going to press him. I don't care. It's just not going to happen, right? Like he gets pressed in AAU and he's playing other guys in that class. It's not working, right? So I talked to a guy who presses a ton, right? And I'm like, you got to help me out here, man. I'm not seeing it. I don't get it. And he challenged my belief that a press could actually be used to dictate the tempo of a game, right? It can dictate the tempo. It can, instead of live ball turnovers, we don't play with a shot clock. So it is a little bit different. Once that comes in, I'm like 100% sold. It's a little bit different, but doing things that would just slow an opponent down or speed them up, depending on what they're not good at. And so I was able to look at that and go, okay, we have the guys that can do that. And maybe I've been shortchanging them because I've been in a fixed mindset that we need to sit down and guard in the half court, especially because we don't have a shot clock, right? And we've got to get 5-second calls and we've got to take charges and we've got to build a wall. We've got to do all these things. And it was like, man, I think there's a whole nother way of doing it and not only doing that and mixing it in. So this year we did that. And next season, we really plan to lean a little bit more into that side of it and cause some mayhem.
Yeah. And I would give you this term is shooting turnovers, right? It's not a
Right.
live ball turnover, but they're taking shots that aren't necessarily in their wheelhouse because you've sped them up and you're used to playing at that tempo. And does it always work? No. Does it get harder with better players? Yes. But if you are in a situation where you are playing a team that's the polar opposite, right? It's an imposition of wills, and whoever can get the game playing the tempo that you want, it's going to benefit them. I like that. Appreciate that. Thank you for jumping on today. It's been fun. We're 3 for 3 in the DFW Metroplex.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.